Hello, everyone. Welcome to Breaking News. We have learned that a deal has been reached between Gaza and, between Hezbollah, oh dear Lord, between Hamas. One of these days I'll get it right. Between Hamas and Israel. The deal is both for a ceasefire and an initial hostage exchange of 30 hostages. This deal is supposed to come in multiple parts, and the understanding is that the first part will result in the release of 30 hostages. If everything goes well and the ceasefire holds, more hostages will be released over time. It is estimated that there's about 250 hostages, 30 of whom are children. All of this started in the what's called the October 7th attack. It is occurred on October 7th, 2023, so it was actually well over a year ago. In this attack, about 8,000 members of Hamas infiltrated Israel and killed over 1,100 people, 800 of which were civilians and 36 of which were children. The interesting thing is that it is believed 15 of the civilians were killed as a result of the Hannibal Directive. The Hannibal Directive has on occasion been an official directive of the IDF, and recently is no longer official. It is, quote, oral law. The Hannibal Directive was first proposed in 1986 and was formalized in 2003. The Hannibal Directive essentially states that because it is so politically difficult to deal with the release of Israeli hostages, and that it actually costs Israel far more. Israel has to give up so much to get its hostages back, but the Israeli people literally force the government into this, that it is better to kill hostages than it is to allow them to be taken by Israel's enemies, Hamas in particular. In 2011, the IDF the IDF Chief of Staff said that this directive does not permit the killing of IDF soldiers to prevent abduction. However, it is said that this order continues unofficially and is supposed to, quote, prevent at all costs the abduction of Israeli civilians or soldiers, including but not limited to causing the death of them. It is estimated that at least 14 civilians were in fact shot and killed by the IDF on October the 7th. Nonetheless, 250 hostages remain in the hands of Hamas, and the numerous protests that we've covered on In Time haven't been to oust Netanyahu specifically, but to object to the fact that he has deliberately tanked deals to get those hostages back. Those hostages, again, being extraordinarily important to the citizens of Israel, and from what we can tell, somewhat less important to the government that has been unwilling to make concessions in order to get them back. This deal we first learned about 2.5 hours ago, when a key mediator in Qatar said that they would be holding a news conference shortly. The Israeli foreign minister was recalled from a trip in Europe. He was supposed to go to Hungary and has instead returned home. Hamas confirmed about just over an hour ago the agreement and delivered a formal confirmation to mediators. Israel has also agreed and has said that, quote, our government and Hamas have agreed to a deal that will pause the fighting in Gaza and lead to a phased release of the hostages and Palestinian prisoners. Again, the initial release is, it's actually 33 hostages from the October 7th attack, and in return, Israel will be releasing hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Now, the original attack, as we said before, resulted in roughly 800 civilian casualties and another 300 IDF casualties. Having said that, the response to the attack was to engage in a war in the Gaza Strip in which over 45,000 Palestinians have been killed. 45,000. That's compared to the 1,200 losses on the Israeli side in the original October 7th attack. It is estimated that 80% of that 45,000 are civilians. Again, 80% are civilians. That is a staggering number. Roughly 70% of the October 7th attack victims were civilians. I'm not sure how much it matters what percentage was civilians if a significant discrepancy necessarily matters. The October 7th attack was a deliberate, premeditated massacre of civilians in Israel, but the response from the Israeli side has been to kill, it's actually closer to 46,000 Palestinians, 80% of whom are estimated to be civilians. UNICEF said as many as 250 children died in the last week alone from the attacks on the Israeli side into the Palestinian-held territory. So, with any luck, this ceasefire will hold. It does appear as if, for the moment, both sides are interested in it. Netanyahu has been against a ceasefire for any number of reasons, not the least of which is they do have a strong stance on not negotiating with terrorists. And as a result of the Hamas is a terrorist organization, has been declared a terrorist organization, and since October 7th, obviously, that didn't help matters. And again, the unofficial policy of the IDF does appear to be to shoot members of the IDF rather than allow them to be taken hostages, to prevent explicitly the problem they have now, which is that if they release hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in exchange for 33 Israeli prisoners, and 7 of which, by the way, hold dual citizenship and are American, to Netanyahu, this is considered a tremendous loss. The people of Israel don't appear to care how many Palestinians need to be released. They want all 250 of their prisoners, all 250 of the Israeli prisoners returned to Israel as soon as possible. Again, that's been really the cause of the protests, has been Netanyahu's refusal to participate in such an exchange. At this point, it looks like the first phase will go through, and as long as the ceasefire holds, 33 prisoners will be exchanged. There will be a second phase and presumably a third phase. We do not yet have the details of these phases. In fact, it looks like the second phase is still being hashed out, but will be contingent on the first phase being successful. Israel giving up the hundreds of Palestinian prisoners it has agreed to give up, while Israel giving up the 33 that it has agreed to give up, all while the ceasefire continues and there's no more shooting at each other on either side. We will have updates on our Discord as we learn more about the other phases and the success or failure of the first raid in Gaza. They have recommended that nobody go out into the streets until the ceasefire can be confirmed to have held. But it's ostensibly very, very good news, again, since this has started. I want to say 48, I think it's about 48,000 Palestinians have been killed. A large number of, it's 46,000, 80% of them civilian, and a huge proportion of them. I see it here What I have here is it says 30% have been children. That seems high, but is entirely possible. We know that the number of children killed in this is disproportionate to most other wars or attacks. So it's obviously horrendous. Stopping it is extraordinarily important. Donald Trump has taken credit already for this. Let me see if I can find he hasn't. President-elect Donald Trump has reacted to the news, saying on Truth Social, quote, "We have a deal for the hostages in the Middle East. They will be released shortly." Thank you. To our knowledge, the president-elect had nothing to do with this deal whatsoever. This deal was negotiated by negotiators working with the United States, Israel, and Palestine. He also said that it could only have happened as a result of our historic victory in November, as it signaled to the entire world that my administration would seek peace and negotiate deals to ensure the safety of all Americans and our allies. With this deal in place, my national security team, through the efforts of Special Envoy to the Middle East, 𝐍𝐢𝐜𝐴𝐻, will continue to work closely with Israel and our allies to make sure that Gaza never again becomes a terrorist safe haven. We will continue to promoting peace through strength throughout this historic region as we build upon the momentum of this ceasefire to further expand the historic Abraham Accords. That is referring to a set of agreements facilitated by his first administration that was an attempt to normalize relations between, actually it saw the normalization of Israel with 4 Arab nations. Previously they only had relations with Egypt. So, I don't see this being Trump's doing, but he is nonetheless taking credit. So for those of you joining us, in October 7th of 2023, there was a massive attack. Roughly 8,000 Palestinians crossed into Israel and slaughtered, butchered 1,200 people, the vast majority of them civilians. We remember the reports, they went into their homes. The civilians had safe rooms, but the safe rooms were designed against bombs and missile attacks, not against intruders, and were unfortunately very easy to open, and families, children were killed, 250 people taken hostage. Since then, the retaliation by Israel has claimed the lives of 46,000 Palestinians, 80% of which, roughly 80% of which, are civilian, and a very high percentage of which are children. The UNICEF, which is the children's organization for the UN, reports that 250 children have been killed in the last week alone. And that's obviously just extraordinary losses on the part of the Palestinian people. We believe now, in fact, we have had confirmed by both Israel and Hamas that a deal has been reached. It is going to be at least 3 phases. The first phase is going to include the release of 33 hostages by Hamas, while Israel will release, quote, hundreds of hostages that they have captured from the Palestinian side. And I should say it's not all Palestinians. I've made this error before, and I did not intend to. But the casualties are Palestinian casualties. 80% of the 46,000 are Palestinian. For the most part, with rare exception, one can say that every member of Hamas is Palestinian. There are mercenaries, there are people who fight on ideological grounds from other countries, but Hamas doesn't really recruit from outside of Palestine. Hamas is a Palestinian organization. However, while all members of Hamas are Palestinian, not all Palestinians are Hamas, a distinction that does not appear to have been made very clearly by the IDF as they retaliate against Palestinians. It's very similar to blaming the entire United States for the actions of the KKK. Every member of the KKK, for the most part, is an American. That doesn't mean every American is a member of the KKK. So if I erred earlier and swapped Hamas when I should have said, swapped Palestine when I should have said Hamas, let that be corrected, because that's extraordinarily important. They have been killing a large number of Palestinians, only a very small percentage of which are actually members of Hamas. Short of the pagers, most of their attacks have been indiscriminate. The pagers was one of the few attacks that appeared really quite targeted at members of Hamas. That was Hezbollah, because that happened in the north. So it was one of the few targeted attacks. They've been, unfortunately, rather indiscriminate. So with any luck, this peace deal will hold. We will keep an eye on it on our Discord. We have a breaking news section, so you can follow it there. And if there's any significant updates, we will let you know. But so far, both sides appear to be reasonably optimistic that this will hold. Both sides have agreed to it, and the negotiators have said that they also appear cautiously optimistic it will hold, and Donald Trump has taken credit for all of it. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you tomorrow night for Downtime with myself and Commander Lance McMillan, and you'll also see us if we have a breaking news again. And yes, I did see that comment about me breaking the news earlier. I do watch the live chat, you know. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern for Downtime. Have a good day.